All right, folks, thanks so much for joining us. We'll get started in just a couple minutes, give people a little bit more time to get on the call.
Alexa, if you have any problems, text me. I'll have my cell phone right next to me.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Jim.
You have my cell phone number, right?
I sure do.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our CCAP Orientation National Webinar. I'm Alexa Hayes, Event Associate at the Partnership, and I'll be running the behind-the-scenes tech for this webinar today. Just a quick few technical notes before we get started. The webinar will be recorded and made available to you all through both a follow-up email and on the Partnership website within the next few days. So if you miss something, don't worry about it. We'll have it up for you. Please note that you will be muted for this presentation, but you should be able to hear us out of your computer speakers or if you called in on your phone. If you lose audio at any time during the presentation, just click the Communicate tab in the upper left-hand corner of your screen and select Audio Broadcast to reboot your audio, or just call back in if you are on the phone. If you continue to have any audio issues, you can also just let me know. Just shoot me an email at ahayes@communityactionpartnership.com, or just type in the text box and we'll get you worked out. All right, so with that, Jim, it's all yours.
Hello, everyone. Are we connected?
Yep, all good, Jim. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank everyone.
You.
Thanks, everyone, and welcome to the first in our series of 4 webinars on the certification program, CCAP, at the Community Action Partnership. During the course of this webinar presentation, I will pause at certain points along the way and check with Alexa to see if you have any questions you would like answered. Also, I will put my email address. You will see it on the last slide. And you are welcome after the to comments you have to me. And back to you. I check that email quite frequently each day and try to be very I try to respond during the course of a few hours. Okay, let's talk now. In this, our first webinar on CCAP, let's get an orientation to this program. CCAP is completely peer-based and peer-run. It's the only national peer-review-based recognition of community action managers and leaders, all the way back from the very beginning when the program was formed in the middle 1990s. Since then, over 150 community action leaders in the field have assisted in the process of developing it. And currently, the whole program has oversight from the Certification Commission, which is appointed by the Partnership Board. There you see the list of the current CCAP commissioners. These commissioners directly score all submissions by candidates or oversee the process of scoring candidate submissions that is done by trained CCAP volunteers. And that commission includes persons who have experience either in public CAPs or in private nonprofit CAPs from all across the country. In some instances, they have been state association staff or CSBG officers. So the whole, and from across the country, so the different parts of community action and the network are represented on this commission. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. The CCAP program is based on two pillars. The first pillar is the Community Action Body of Knowledge Outline. This is a 5-section list of all the knowledge and skills which is expected the community action managers and leaders would know in order to function in a position of leadership in their community and in their agency. And this body of knowledge outline basically serves as the foundation for the assessment processes that make up the CCAP program. And here you see the 5 areas that are in the body, under the body of knowledge outline: the history of community action movement, the vision and values that guide community action, traditional management skills, a section on leadership, and a section on theories about the causes of poverty and the strategies to address them. Now, of course, this is only the subject heading. The rather extensive outline itself is available, as are all the documents that are part of the CCAP program from the partnership's website if you go to the CCAP page. The second pillar of the program is the Community Action Code of Ethics. That's the standard for professional behavior that guides the decisions that community action leaders make. And all candidates sign an agreement to abide by the code. And that agreement must be signed before candidacy is begun. And the commission does enforce the code, though it is an extremely rare occurrence when any complaint is sent to the commission about what is considered an appropriate behavior profession by a CCAP that's not in fitting with the profession. The commission examines those concerns. Now, that full body of knowledge outline and the Community Action Code of Ethics and the candidacy guide and all related CCAP documents and instructions, as I mentioned before, are available for download on the partnership's website. Let me say a word just a moment about that third item on the list, which is the candidacy guide. I would suggest that right after listening to this webinar, you download that candidacy guide. It is a written form of much of what we cover in this presentation, and it's a good resource to have to consult as you consider candidacy for yourself. Now, why become a CCAP? The list shows you some things that we have learned over the years in various surveys and conversations with community action professionals around the country. First of all, the CCAP program transmits professional standards for leadership and community action. In a way, it codifies those standards for professionalism. And it then validates the achievements of community action managers and leaders and provides visibility and recognition. Those of us working in the field have that right to be known for what we do and to be recognized for what we do. In addition, it improves opportunities for professional advancement. Some examples of that you might see in many instances when executive level management positions, especially CEO positions, are advertised, that nowadays it's common to see CCAPs preferred. And there are agencies around the country who require persons who are about to take on important management, executive level management roles to become CCAP candidates, or in fact might be required to be a CCAP in order to be considered for those positions. That begins to happen more and more around the country. It strengthens commitment to a common mission. Yes, we have found that to be true, especially when there are a number of CCAPs on the leadership team. And that is, there's a certain understanding that's shared by the team, and then it breaks down silos. That is that the members of the team, because they have been involved in the process to become a CCAP, understand community action from the larger perspective. Then when they meet and gather, they have the whole of what community action is about held in common, and talking about how to make things happen in their own agency. So that commitment has been very valuable in building a esprit de corps in community action. And understandably, then, the process of becoming a CCAP does transmit the basic values and knowledge and essential skills to new generation of community action managers and leaders. So if you're asking the question, is CCAP for me? Well, then, if you are a current or emerging manager or leader in the profession of community action, and if you're employed full-time in a community action agency, a delegate agency, a subgrantee, any CSBG eligible entity, a state or CSBG office or state or regional association, that's the starting point. But if you have served for at least 2 years, that is a full 24 months, in a position that's considered executive management, that is required. Now, the Commission understands that something qualifies as executive management if any 3 of the 5 descriptions fit that position. That the position includes authority beyond the mere responsibility to carry out others' orders. It's, in other words, you're given discretion to make decision how to manage programs. If your position supervises at least one other employee, if the position includes the responsibility to report directly to the board or a board committee or directly to the CEO, if it includes the responsibility of administering a budget, and if it's a member of the executive team, if you can say yes to any 3 of those 5, then your position qualifies for candidacy. But you also have to ask yourself, am I committed to the vision and values of community action? Do I see this as more than just a job? Do I see it as a calling? Am I committed to maintaining those high ethical standards of professional conduct that I'm willing to sign on to? And am I willing to learn more about the history, vision, and values of community action, as well as principles of good management, best leadership practices, and current theories about poverty in America? Now, the CCAP program is not a training program. It's an assessment program. So in regard, when that's listed among the expectations for CCAP candidacy, it doesn't mean the candidate's going to attend particular classes. It means as you look over that body of knowledge outline and say, I'm lacking in my understanding of good management skills, or I'm lacking in my understanding of theories of poverty because I'm so immersed just in my own program, then that means I'm willing to pursue opportunities to learn about those things that might be missing in my understanding the whole of community action. So if you're willing to kind of fill in those spaces on that body of knowledge outline where you feel incomplete, then that's another important qualification for CCAP candidacy. If that's true, then CCAP may well be right for you. I'm going to talk about now the point system that the CCAP program is based on. What we do today is just have a very brief overview of the point system as it is made visible through 3 assessment activities: the candidate data form, known as the CDF, the executive skills portfolio, or the ESP, and the exam. But before we look at that and look at those pieces, let me see if there are any questions about the introductory material. But I will say that we'll look at the end of the webinar at the more specific details of how do you go about enrollment. But before I do that, let me check with Alexa. Do we have any questions in your chat box that I need to respond to? I take that as we don't. Okay. Then let's continue. Certification is based on a point system where a candidate has a maximum of 3 years to accumulate points. When one enrolls as a CCAP candidacy, there is you have that option to complete the program in the course of 3 years. Our experience is it's about 40 to 50% of candidates, and it's been growing in recent years, tend to accomplish the whole certification program in 1 year. But everyone's schedule and everyone's ability to complete the process is different. So there are 3 years to complete the process. Now, understand that certification is a positive outcome of an assessment process. It's not a training program. It's a structured way for you to demonstrate the commission that they can certify that you are a professional, that you have merited recognition by the National Association. And the way in which you are able to make that visible is by participating in these 3 assessment activities, each of which provides a number of points, and you need to accumulate the expected minimum number of points in order to be successful in demonstrating your profession. So the first of those measures is a measure of kinds of experience in community action. That's the candidate data form. We will look at that in just a few moments. Then we will look at the skills that one has to demonstrate in doing the work of community action, and that is assessed by developing a portfolio. And then finally, one's comprehensive knowledge about community action across all 5 domains in the body of knowledge outlined, and that is what is assessed in the community action exam. Let's take a look first at measuring candidate. The detailed record. We'll look a bit of what that form looks like in just a detailed record of your education, your action, what data form affords it up, your education, working with colleagues, your activities that advances the work state or in education, and so much record of that. It is a form that it's a fillable PDF in which you identify according to 4 different sections as the CDF is divided. Now, it is evaluated and scored, and that scoring can earn up to 500 points. Now, that number of points is not going to mean something right now. It won't mean something until we look at each of these three assessment processes, candidate data form and executive skills portfolio, first together, and then the exam. You'll see how those accumulation of points make a difference. Now, clearly, the longer you've been in community action and the more active you have been, the better your score. So that's important. Now, the candidate data form is due on the third Wednesday of January each year. A point about when saying it's due on the third Wednesday of January each year. As a candidacy is a 3-year period, but each year is a potential year to complete the process. So you'll see that there is a date for submission of the candidate data form in each year, a date for submission of the portfolio, and the date for the exam. Those are the dates at which we close the process of consideration in that year. So for consideration for potential qualification to be certified in 2020, the candidate data form will be due on the third Wednesday of January in 2020. Now, that's if one expects to complete it in 1 year. But there's the option then in 2021 and 2022 if you enroll in this particular year. Okay, let's move ahead, move forward. The candidate data form has 4 categories. The first category that you complete in this fillable PDF is about your employment. The second category is education and training experiences. The third category is your involvement in national, regional, state, and local activities. And the fourth is your involvement in publication and training. Now, category 1 is about employment. And in that one, you list the occasions for your experiences. And I'm going to show you that actually on the next page, what it looks like. The number of years that you have functioned as management or executive staff in your community action agency or in your state association. Now understand that management or executive staff is any position in which you can say yes to any of those 3 criteria that we listed at the beginning of the webinar. So for any of those positions, you can obtain up to 15 points per year. There's a maximum. Once you have claimed 10 years and 150 points, that's the maximum number of points that you can get in that particular category. And you see, then there's number of years as full-time management or executive staff member in an organization other than community action agency. Let's say, for example, you might have worked in your city manager's office for 2 years before you joined the community action agency, and you were in a management position there. Those also count, and that's 8 points per year, up to 50 points. So these same divisions or subsections, if we'll go back to the previous slide, exist in the realm of education and training, where you may have got a degree, an associate's, or a bachelor's, or a master's, or a PhD. All of those degree programs count. Or you have gone to different training programs that have been provided, maybe by your state association, or you've gone to the annual conference. All of those count. As is true in section number 3. If you have been involved in talking about your agency's work to your local United Way and been given a presentation around your agency, all those kinds of things count. They will, if you participate in the webinar on November 6th, which looks at the candidate data form, we will look at each of those sections in a lot of detail. Okay. The second of the assessment activities is the executive skills portfolio. Now, this is a sample of work that a candidate submits in which you show how you have applied those competencies that are listed in the body of knowledge in your work setting. There's a lot of detail in the instructions that are available on the partnership website. It's the ESP portfolio guidelines. And that guide gives you obviously a lot more detail than we can talk about here. And we will examine those details in our January webinar. But basically, it's your opportunity to showcase the work that you have done by talking about a specific project or program or activity in which you are able to show the evaluators that you have used the skills that are expected of community action executive level managers. That also is evaluated and scored, and a candidate earns up to 500 points in that process of in demonstrating your skills in a portfolio. And it's due on the third Wednesday of February each year. So then let's consider the CDF and ESP together. If you're hoping to complete the process in 2020, that means your candidate data form will have been submitted by the third Wednesday of January, and your executive skills portfolio would have been submitted by the third Wednesday of February in 2020. Let's say you submitted only your candidate data form in January, well, you won't be able to qualify in 2020, but your candidate data form is in your file, so it's stored when you go into 2021, and maybe that's when you submit your executive skills portfolio, or maybe in that year you added additional material to your candidate data form in January, so you beef it up, and then you do your executive skills portfolio by the third Wednesday of February. And again, that can be repeated in the third year. The point is to offer the candidate opportunities to fit your time schedule. Excuse me. Besides a work sample, the executive skills portfolio asks you to talk about what you're submitting. You're asked to write a series of essays about that portfolio that you have submitted. The first essay that you write and submit with the portfolio is how you explain how your work sample shows both that you understand and are able to use the classic management practices in the area of planning, organizing, directing, and evaluating, so that you can tell the evaluators, this is how I was involved in planning, this is how I managed the organizing of it, this is how I directed the process, and this is how I established or we worked on an evaluation system for that particular project, or that program, or that activity. So that's the first essay. The guidelines give you more details about how to structure that essay than we would look at today, but we will look at that in more detail in the January webinar on the portfolio. The second essay asks you to talk about the leadership skills, and it has two parts to it. Then is to identify your leadership style, that is, as it is manifested in your work sample. That doesn't mean your leadership style, if you look at me, well, this is the kind of leader I am. That's not what it's asking. It's asking you, given that situation in that portfolio, how did you function as a leader? What kind of a leader were you? For example, let's say you were doing a project where you were involved with revising your agency's policies and practices, resource director about human resource, you from the people that will manage different departments, but you're going to be directing and guiding them to tell you information you director will this data as we review it. But maybe it's something where you are not the expert in the program. And maybe what you're saying is that you need to pull together some experts to help you, for example, of mentors who have been incarcerated, and you know very little about those kind of group facilitation activities. So you may need to call together a group of experts so your style of leadership may be more one that is collaborative, to call upon their expertise. The point is you want to demonstrate what kind of leadership you exerted in that particular program. And then say, how did that style help you as a leader in an organization? But you also ask, have been the limits, or how could that limit your role as a leader? In other words, you're being asked to reflect on leadership skills in your asked to explain how the work sample shows that you understand and have used put to work, might say, the vision and values of community action. You might have noticed so far that each of those essays relates to a specific part of the body of knowledge outline. The third one says vision and values in the body of knowledge outline. The second one points to leadership in the body of knowledge outline. The first essay looked at management skills. So management skills in the body of knowledge outline, leadership skills is detailed in the body of knowledge outline, and community action, vision, and values is so therefore, when someone's considering what kind of portfolio to put together, look to the body of knowledge outline, because that details the kind of knowledge that a community action leader is expected to put to practice in their executive skills portfolio. The fourth essay, however, relates your portfolio to the larger question of organizational excellence. Here, you are asked to demonstrate how your work sample contributes to what could be your agency's attainment or enhancement of one of those standards of excellence, or how it has the capacity to contribute to that standard. For example, there are standards about human resource management. If that's what your function is in your agency, then you want to say, why did we take on this project? Relate it to what is expected to be excellence in the way of dealing with human resources. That's an example, all right? I'm going to turn to Alexa and see if we have any questions that have been written in the chat box that are about the candidate data form and the executive skills portfolio as described in this orientation session. Do we have any questions,
Hey.
Alexa?
Hey, Jim. No questions so far. I think everything's good and clear.
Okay, great. Then we're going to proceed to the CCAP exam. Now, the third assessment process is measuring the candidate's knowledge. That means passing the national exam. Here's where the point system is going to start to make sense. One does not qualify to take the exam until you've achieved a total of at least 700 points on your candidate data form and your ESP combined within those 3 years. So that means is your candidate data form submitted in 2020 and your executive skills portfolio submitted, if you don't quite make 700 points, that means you'll have other years to add more information to your candidate data form or to revise your executive skills portfolio. But notice it's 700 points combined where each must by itself, the CDF portfolio, have been evaluated as a minimum of 300 points. Whenever a candidate and a portfolio and the scoring process is complete, I will advise that the scoring process for the executive skills portfolio for all candidates can take up to 7 weeks. It's very labor intensive. It's scored by a jury, and they have to come to agreement at a very rigorous level of intersubjective agreement. That a candidate gets a report, and in that report gets a summary of the number of points that have been provided on both the candidate data form and the ESP. And there can be follow-up emails about more breakdown specific on the portfolio and the candidate data form, where you get statistical information about that to assist you in here. But once a candidate points, then the candidate exam. So if you become a candidate and are successful on your candidate data form and executive skills portfolio and reaching those thresholds, then on June 17th, 2020, you will be able to take the certification exam. It's based, again, on the community action body of knowledge outline. There are questions on each section of the body of knowledge outline. It is more experience-based than it is memorization-based. So it asks you most often and with questions that have the highest value to show that you can use that information and apply it. A study guide is posted on the partnership's website each January. That study guide directs candidates to the actual texts and the chapters within those texts, or the actual federal documents, etc., and the sections of that document that are the sources for the questions asked in that year's exam. So that study guide that's published in January gives candidates ample time to look through those sources. But what is especially valuable about this we're learning is that candidates, when they see that and begin to study, then get a larger understanding of community action writ large, just by the very act of studying all that material. We get that report every year from candidates, how they appreciate how much they've learned about parts of community action that they might not have been exposed to before. The passing score is 70% of the questions, and it is administered using an online format based on the Moodle program. If any of you participate in the Community Action Academy, then you know you've been on the Moodle platform. That's the platform that is used for the exam.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
Hey, we've got a quick question. Will the 2020 CDF be available, or are we still using the 2019 form?
I was going to mention that. I'll do that now. All the documents that you see on the current partnership website are current documents for you to use. It may have been the last time that it needed adjustments was in 2019. So that the date that you see is the date of its last approval. So if there's not going to be a different newly approved candidate data, different from what you see skills portfolio on the partnership website. There are accessing from their colleagues who have used, who have been candidates in past years, their documents. Don't do that because you might have an old form. Go to the website to download the current forms. Okay. So, building your pathway to your becoming a CCAP, there is a lot of help, especially if you're not yet ready to become a candidate. So here's some things to help you get ready and get started, no matter where you are in the process right now. This can apply to you. First, meet with your executive director to determine the level of support you can receive from your agency. You need to have the support of your agency that they're behind you in your effort to do this. That includes certain things, the costs for enrollment, and we'll look at specifically what those costs are in a few minutes. And will the executive director support, or the agency support you in any kind of learning experiences you might need in order to increase your competence and your understanding or your skill in doing the work of community action? Will you get the opportunities to expand your horizon or broaden your reach beyond just what your own program is in community action? Will you have the opportunity to talk about your work to others in your community, or be involved in community-wide organizations and be the community action representative in your field or something like that? So will you have those opportunities? Will they be provided for you? Okay. Step 2, identify a CCAP mentor who can guide you through each step of the process and coach you in preparing and submitting your documents along the way, if you can. Many of you come from states and in agencies that have CCAPs in the agency. They may very well be able to function in that. But we do suggest, though, that you go to the partnership website and go to the CCAP page where it says CCAP documents. Click on that link to download, to see the menu, and when you click on it, and underneath you'll find the particular place that lists the current CCAP mentors. Don't do that right away. I just submitted last week the name of the last group of trained mentors, and their names are going to be included. So just give the staff in DC a little time to post that new list before you access it. Good to connect with one of them, and that's the person you might want to talk over the candidate data form and your experiences. That's the person you might want to talk with to help you think through what kind of a project or program or activity that you want to document in your portfolio. It's a good idea to work with a mentor. And start your journey to CCAP and ask some things. Determine when you will meet. When will you meet that 24-month rule of being employed full-time in community action, if you haven't done that already. It's a time to start is now, even if you haven't, so that you can start accumulating experiences so you hit the ground running when you've got that 2 years. Review the Code of Ethics and make sure you can commit yourself to sign it. Take it seriously. Then read the CDF guidance document. The CDF itself and a document that guides you in how to complete it is on the partnership website. And of course, you'll get more information if you participate in the November webinar. Do a test run of the candidate data form. The candidate data form, you'll be able to see how many points are available for each activity you record, what the total number of points are available in that. You can pretty well score it yourself you'll get a good idea what that score is. So your score is not going to be the official one, and there's some things that have to be considered by those who evaluate it. Some scores are ambiguous, and sometimes the chair of the commission needs to determine whether something counts or not, but that's generally on the margins. You can read of a candidate data form. You can really figure it out pretty much on your own. So download it after you hang up and practice with it. Then sign up for those webinars, or I would say visit the website for the previously recorded webinars. I would suggest participate in the new ones instead. And then map out training options to deepen your understanding where you see a need to build more competence. Think of this in terms of professional development, not just attempting to be assessed as a CCAP. And think about where you need, look at that body of knowledge. Where do you need to develop yourself in your understanding about community action? And look at what's coming up online through partnership website activities, for example. Look at activities that your state association is putting on, or things that are going on in your local community, or the state training programs, etc. So map out your own options. Okay? Consider what you might showcase as an example of your good work. Discuss that as you develop your portfolio with your CCAP mentor. And then, if you can, sign up for a CCAP study group. Now, many of you are in states that have a CCAP study group, and there are more that are going to form this year in more states. In some instances, some states admit candidates to participate by means of conference call and internet exchanges in their study groups. Some of those study groups start right away, and they meet once or twice to confer about completing a portfolio or a candidate data form. But where the study groups really become crucial is in the winter and spring, when it comes time to prepare for the exam, because those study groups, they parcel out responsibilities over different parts of the study guide, and they help each other reflect on what's in those study materials. We have found that active participation in the study group is a significant predictor of success in the CCAP exam. Approximately 85 to 90% of the persons who qualify to take the exam actually do succeed. It's a tough exam, that's true. But the candidates who study and prepare for it, especially those participating in a study group, are successful on the exams. It's good to get involved with other candidates. Okay. For reminders, and then we'll look at, after these reminders, some details about enrollment. Candidacy lasts in one option. Provide opportunities for others new to community action that will become especially visible as you look at the candidate data form. There is help. All the forms you need are on the website. You can get a mentor, and there are study groups to assist you. And then how do you get started? It's for you then, complete and submit the enrollment form that's available on the Community Action Partnership website. And you pay the enrollment fee. Some of you may be part of a cohort where your enrollment fee is paid by your state association, a community state association. You submit the enrollment form, which includes 3 signatures on it. One from your CEO, or if you are the CEO, by your board chair, and one from 2 colleagues who agree to your enrolling as a candidate and agree to support your candidacy and encourage you. Then you sign the Community Action Code of Ethics. And those you submit. This now is the fees that for candidacy. Notice something, that it encourages a group of candidates to enroll at one time, and therefore the cost per candidate decreases as a group enrolls. That's important. There's a reason for that, and that is that, again, we find more success in becoming a CCAP when someone's part of a cohort of people wanting to become CCAPs. Another reason is when there's more than one CCAP from an agency, it impacts an agency even more forcefully. Another approach to this is the state associations know about this bundle. We talk to them at the convention, the partnership convention, each year. And a number of state associations act as fiscal agents for a group of candidates within their own state. Talk with your state association, see if they're doing that, or encourage them to do that. They can purchase a bundle of CCAP candidacies and distribute them in a way that's appropriate in that state. Maybe it's something where they give some scholarships. Maybe it's something where they act as fiscal agent and collect the fees. Let's say that the state association purchases 8 candidacies. That means they, in a sense, bill each agency $238 per candidate to fill that cohort. But that's not just because of being economically advisable. It means we've got a group of people, and that group of people support each other, and CCAP is more successful. That's the rationale behind that bundling. Okay, reminder, there are other training options. Register for those webinars. I know that you can for the CDF now. I'm not sure if that registration's up yet for ESP and exam dates, but if it's not, I'm sure it will be soon. But register for those webinars. In those webinars, we will go into much more detail on each of those things we just looked at in a very cursory way this afternoon. Now, you will see I'm sorry, I guess that slide didn't show. The next slide had showed the list of documents that are on the partnership website, but I will mention them to you. You will find the Code of Ethics. You will find the Body of Knowledge outline. You will find a pathways description. That is what we talked about ways to work with someone to help you prepare, that is your mentors. You'll find the list of CCAP mentors, the current list that'll be updated shortly. You will find the enrollment and payment form that you just looked at. You'll find a guide to the candidate data form and the candidate data form itself, the current one in use. You will find additionally a document that helps you add to your candidate data form in following years if it wasn't enough in your first year. You will find the guidelines for how to develop and submit your executive skills portfolio. And you will find the study guide for the 2020 exam. It will be available on the partnership website at the end of January, January 31st to be exact, is the required deadline for its posting. You will find that available for the 2020 exam. So I thank you for participating and your patient listening. Let me check and see, Alexa, in our last couple of minutes, do we have any questions remaining?
I don't see any, but folks, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and send them to us in the chat box now, and we'll just give it 30 seconds or so just to let you guys get your questions in if you have them.
Okay. All right, now I mentioned earlier that, and I'm sorry, I don't know why my last slide didn't convey. Let me try again to see if that's the case. No, it didn't. All right. Okay, on that last one, I do give the email address for you to connect with me, and that's CCAP Contact. That's CCAP Contact at AOL.com. Now, that's a very old email address. That was established in the early 1990s as a way to get directly to my desk. but it's out there all around the network, and it's better to leave that alone than to try to relink it some way else. So we've retained that as one that goes directly to my desk. So send out your questions to ccapcontact@aol.com at any time, and I'll do my best to answer those questions or point you in the right direction. I have two responsibilities for the partnership as a CCAP program administrator. One is to assist the Commission in its task of oversight in policies and program activities and in assessment of candidates and the use of assessment instruments. The second one is to help candidates be successful in the process. That's my responsibility to you. So please make use of that opportunity. Connect with me if you have questions. I will do my best to answer them or to point you in the right direction, because I hope to have that opportunity to meet many of you next August at the annual partnership convention in Seattle, at that wonderful moment in Thursday evening gala when the new CCAPs walk across that stage and are cheered on by their friends and colleagues in that banquet hall. It's a wonderful moment. I look forward to sharing that one with you. Well, thank you very much for participating in this webinar. My understanding is that this webinar will soon be archived and available so that you can listen again. Thank you all very much.
All right, we don't have any more questions, so everyone keep an eye out for our follow-up email, and we'll let you know when the recording and PowerPoint are available. All right, thank you.